Hi everyone, my name is Nuria and this is my sewing journey. And for today's video, I'm going to show you how to create this blouse.
What do I call this feeling? Feet on the ground, head in the sky. Real life, but like I'm dreaming. Floating above it, 10 feet high. I can't describe what goes on inside. What do I call this feeling? 'Cause I think you give me butterflies. I think that your voice sounds like honey on a summer's day. Did I say?
Until now, they were kind of t-shirts, but now we're going to create the middle separation so that makes it a blouse finally. This is the third video out of 5 videos that I'm making where I show you every day how to create a different blouse based on the basic top pattern. This one is very simple and I'm going to guide you through all the steps. So we're going to start with drafting the pattern. We're going to go into cutting the fabric. Then we're going to put the pieces together, and finally I'm going to share some tips and tricks on how to change it a little bit. So that is everything. Let's get into it. Let's talk about materials. The first thing you're going to need is your basic top pattern. We're 3 days into blouses now, so you should have this pattern. If you don't have it, I'm going to link it down below on my version on how to create your basic top pattern. We're going to need some paper to make modifications. If you don't have this big paper, then you can just use normal A4 papers with some tape. You're going to need a pencil or a pen or whatever you use to draw. Then some scissors that are only for paper and some rulers. These are good to have, but they are not 100% needed. Well, a normal ruler, yes, but if you have this one with this nice shape, it's very nice to have. And also I always recommend to have a ruler with a 90-degree angle because I like it. I'm an engineer and I like to have one of these. As for the fabric, you're going to need a little bit less than a meter of fabric pre-washed, because otherwise it shrinks after you create your blouse and then that beautiful thing is going to be ruined. For this blouse, I have to say I have no idea what fabric it is. I would say something drapey, a little bit viscose, but it has more body than a viscose. It was not a nightmare to sew, and normally viscose is a nightmare to sew. So I would say something kind of sturdy, but flowy. You have one of those pens that it's erased with the iron. It's very nice to have. Then fabric scissors. Do not cut paper with the scissors. Then you're going to need your thread, some needles to attach the pieces together. I also like to have normal needles because I like to do some finishes by hand. And then onto the machines, you're going to need an iron, then your normal sewing machine, and optional the serger machine. If you like the finishes and you like to overlock and your fabric frays, then you can use it. But if you don't have a serger and you want to overlock your seams, you can do it with the zigzag stitch from your sewing machine. So that is no problem at all. That is everything. Let's get into drafting.
The first thing we have to do is convert this pattern into a dartless pattern. Starting with the back, draw a line from the tip of the shoulder dart to the armhole notch. Do the same for the front pattern. Now cut through that line and also cut through the shoulder darts. We will transfer the shoulder darts to the armhole. Once that's done, redraw the armhole and the shoulder if needed. And there you have it, the dartless blouse.
Once we have the main structure, we can start defining the neckline. For this blouse, we'll do a V neckline and we can make it as deep as we want. For reference, mine is 3 centimeters above the bust line. This neckline will also define the shoulder length, which we will transfer to the back piece and redraw the back neckline. When we cut an open neckline, our pattern will sit differently on our body and we will have some extra fabric. To fix that, we'll add some extra darts. If you're interested in why that happens and how that happens, you can watch my video about contouring. We'll identify where the waist dart was and we'll draw a 0.6 centimeter dart from the bust point to the middle of the neckline. We will also subtract 0.3 centimeters from the middle of the shoulder. These are standard measurements. If you want to be more precise, again, you can watch my contouring video. For the neckline dart that we just draw, we open it and we also open the waist dart. What we're going to do is transfer the dart from the neckline to the dart of the waist. And once that's done, we can just redraw all the lines and that is everything. Let's draw the sleeve. We're going to start by marking 0 at the top of the paper. We'll measure down 1/3 of the armhole measurement and mark 0.1. From 0, we'll also add the sleeve length down and mark
0.2. From point 1, we'll add bicep divided by 2 plus 4 cm to both sides. They will be 0.3 to the left and 4 to the right. Connect 0.0 and 3 and 0.0 and 4. The left side corresponds to the back. We'll divide that line into fourths and add the numbers 5, 6 and 7. Moving to the front, so the right side, we'll measure from 0.4 halfway between 0 and 4 minus 1.8 centimeters and we'll mark 0.8. Then we'll divide both sides halfway and mark 0.9 to the left and 10 to the right. Now draw a curve that goes from 0.3 to 0.5 centimeters below 0.5, crosses 0.6, goes 2 centimeters outside of 0.7, across 0.0, 2 centimeters above 0.9, across 0.8, 1.5 centimeters below 0.10 and ends in 0.4. To close off the sleeve, we'll measure from 0.2 wrist circumference plus 6.5 centimeter to the right and to the left, and we will connect the sleeve. This sleeve is meant to be a short sleeve, so it's the simplest design you can get. If you plan on making it long, I would add maybe an elbow dart or make a prototype first to make sure that the length is the appropriate one. We have to make sure that the sleeve is going to fit on the armhole and that it's centered. Measure for both front and back where the notches would be. After that, mark where the shoulder seam is situated. You'll see there's some extra fabric on the sleeve, which will give it a round shape. Measure the ease between shoulder seams and mark where the new middle would be. That's the center of your sleeve. Now that you have the main structure of the sleeve, you can shorten it as much as you want. For example, in my design, it's around 22 centimeters. And once you're happy with your length, you can start adding volume if that's what you want. We're going to separate it into little sections. The more sections, the more volume you're going to have in your sleeve. After that, we're going to separate those sections depending on how much volume we want again. For example, in my design, I separated them around 2 centimeters between each other, but the more you separate them, the more volume you will add. And once that's done, you can redraw your sleeve and you'll be able to choose if you want a normal sleeve or a sleeve with volume. Once we're done, we can talk about seam allowances. In general, all the seam allowances are going to be around 1 centimeter. If you don't feel confident enough to do 1 centimeter, then you can always do 1.5 or 2 centimeters. The pieces we have now are front and back, the sleeves, and then the facing. You can do the facing as big as you want. The only thing is that if your fabric is see-through and you make it big, then you're going to be able to see the facing. The only seam allowance that is not going to be 1 centimeter is the bottom of the sleeve and the blouse, and this is going to be around 2 centimeters depending on the finishes that you add to your blouse. One last thing to take into account is that this blouse is designed to be on the waistline, and if you want to make it longer, then you have to elongate the sides. And for reference, my blouse was 10 centimeters longer.
It's time to put the pieces together. We should have the bottom loops, 2 sleeves, the front and back, and then the front and back facing. As always, we're going to start with overlocking. If you want to do it, it's not necessary. You can overlock the shoulder seams and the side seams for front and back, the side seams for both sleeves, and then for the facing, you can overlock the shoulder seams. We can do that and come back. We're done overlocking and we're going to have all these pieces. We're going to get the front and the back and we're going to put one over the other one with right sides facing each other. Once that's done, we're going to add a stitch on the shoulder seams and on the side seams. We're going to do the same for the front and back facing. Right sides together and shoulder seams only. Now we'll have to press all the seams flat with the seams open. Now we have front and back attached together and it's time to create the loops. So we have 3 options. This one is the typical cord that you can buy in your fabric store, or you can also use any yarn of some kind. The second thing is the bias tape. This is kind of what we did for blouse number 1, and what you can do, bias tape is something that opens and it's separated into fourths. And what you can do is just fold it and then fold it in the middle and add a top stitch here. I like to use bias tape when the cord is too small, because if it's less than 1 centimeter, it's very difficult to create, and I normally go for bias tape. The third method is using your own fabric, and there are multiple ways on how you can turn it around. You can use these kind of tools. There are other tools also that I don't have here, but the simplest one is adding a strap of yarn, for example, and then putting right sides together and sewing along here and here, making sure that the yarn is attached. So let's go. This is how it should look like. And then what we're going to do is trim a little bit these edges here. And it's as simple as pulling from this side. And then the beginning is a bit tricky, but once it's in, it's easier. The bigger the cord and the lightest the fabric is, the easiest it is to turn around. So see, it's already here. And I can turn it all the way around. We would press it flat. We would get rid of this piece of yarn and we would have the cord. Once you've created the loops, or even if you just use one type of cord, what you're going to do is cut as many as you want. They all have to be the same length. And now we're going to put the right sides together and pin it. Once you have it pinned all the way with right sides together, you have to decide which side is going to have your loops. So I think for girls is on the left side, so here. And what we're going to do is get the loops, fold them like this, and then put them like that. And we're going to make sure that they stay in place with some pins. And once you have them all into place, you can attach the facing. And again, hold it with some pins. Once you're ready, we're going to add a stitch all around and come back. The stitch is done, so what we're going to do now is cut these extras and cut like this on the edges. To make sure that we can turn it around. After that, you'll open it like that and you'll press it flat, and we'll turn it again like this and you'll press it flat again. Now the facing has been attached. You see that it looks nice and neat. And then to finish the insides, what I like to do is doing it by hand, and the only thing that I do is I fold this 1 centimeter inwards and then I sew it by hand with an invisible stitch. An invisible stitch means that I'm going to go on the normal garment and I'm going to get one thread, go under one thread, and then on the diagonal I'm going to go through here. We get here, and then we get 1 or 2 threads here. See? And then on the diagonal, like that. And then we go like that all the way. For the buttons, I used one of these buttons that has 2 pieces, and that comes out of your garment. It's very easy, the instructions are in the box, but if you don't know, you have this piece, you have to cut your fabric with this size, it comes in the box, and then you would put it over here, you would get the big piece, press it, and then once all the fabric is inside of the button, you would add this little piece, you would add it here, and then you would press as hard as you can, and then you would have your own button. But here you have it, and then you just attach it all the way through. It's better if you add some type of interfacing. For me, because I had the facing and the normal side of the fabric, then I did not interfacing, but maybe I should have, because otherwise it's a little bit wobblish. What we're going to do is attach the sleeves. First we're going to do 2 basting stitches, separated 0.5 centimeter from the edge and then 1 centimeter from each other, and they are going to go from knot to knot. And do not do a back stitch, so only go all the way around. I'm going to make sure that I have a straight stitch here and that I'm going to put it at the maximum stitch length here. This is how it looks like, and we're going to leave all these threads loose. Now we're going to put right sides together and we're going to sew along the side seam with a normal stitch. This is how it should look like. You see that I also press the seams open. And what we're going to do is turn it on the right side. So the right side is facing you. We're going to get this piece and we're going to turn it so the right sides are facing each other. After that, we're going to see where the notches are. So the front has 2 notches and the back has only 1 notch. And this one has 1 notch here and 2 notches here. So I know that this sleeve goes on this side. And we're going to make sure that all the notches are in the correct position, like this. So the back notch, the front notch, the middle notch on the shoulder seam, and then the side seam. Once we have that, we're going to get these threads here on one side, and we're going to pull until the length of the sleeve is the same length as this part of the armhole. We can do that by pulling a little bit, and then we can secure it going around the needle. We make sure that all these gathers are distributed in a way that they are not going to be noticed, and then we're going to secure it with more pins. Once this has been done for both sides, we can add a normal stitch with the seam allowance that we added for the sleeve. And as for the finishes, there are 2 types of finishes that you can do. One, the one I used in this garment, if you have an overlocker, you just overlock all the way and then you fold it once. So this is what I did here, and then I top stitched. I would get my garment and I would go over stitch, fold and top stitch. But if you don't have an overlocker, what you can do is just fold it and then fold it again and top stitch here. So then it would be neater. I use that finishing technique for both the sleeves and the end of your garment. We're finally done with the blouse. I hope yours looks gorgeous. I'm sure it does. And now it's time to share with you some of the tips and tricks on how to modify this blouse pattern. Of course, the first thing that comes to mind is the V-neck. You will be able to modify it, making it a bit shorter or a bit deeper. The only thing you have to take into account is the contouring. I have another video talking about contouring and how to create different necklines, and it's very important that you watch that video before doing anything. The other thing is how the buttons work. So this one, for example, if I do like that, you can see some spaces in here. What you can do also is take that into account and create an extra little bit of space. So one side of the fabric goes over the other one, and you can just add simple buttons that are stick to your fabric instead of these ones that you have to create the loops. That is up to you completely. You can of course change the sleeves, the length of the sleeve. And the last thing is the facing. So here I showed you how to finish it in the proper way, I would say, because I like that the inside is as nice as the outside, so I like to finish it properly. But if you don't have time, or you don't have the patience, or you want to finish it in another way, what you can do is just overlock the edges, or not even overlocking, just folding the fabric twice onto each other and then hem it. That's it. That's all you have to do. You have to be a bit careful if you have round spaces, because then the fabric will pull, so you will have to create some little cuts. But apart from that, with this design, I think it should be fine. That is everything for today. I hope you like it. This one is one of my favorite blouses out of them all, because I wear it all the time at work. The only problem is these holes here that I have to wear a t-shirt below it. But apart from that, I love it. If you make it, please share with me. My Instagram name is _Nuriamo. Don't forget to subscribe if you are not subscribed yet. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye!